Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, I'm Patricia Perez, AARP California's State President Emeritus. Bienvenidos and thanks for those joining us live as we celebrate the last few days of Latino Heritage Month. Today, we're here with special guests, Leigh Henderson, Managing Director of Teatro Visión, and actor and poet Cristal González Avila, who recently wrote and directed Luz, a shadow play inspired by senior stories. We're excited to share Teatro's Vision's work of celebrating culture, nurturing community, and inspiring vision with you and the play Luz. But before we do so, I encourage you to share this stream now with your own Facebook page so your friends and family can also join the conversation. And I invite you to ask Leigh and Cristal questions in the comments. We will take a few questions live toward the end of the conversation. Well, a lo que venimos, right? Let's start the program. As part of our Latino Heritage Month celebration, we're delighted to share one of San Jose's jewel theaters, Teatro Visión. Established more than 35 years ago, Teatro Visión has celebrated Chicano culture, or as Teatro says, Chicanx culture, and sought to take on issues of the day, encouraging the audience to consider various points of view and nurturing a community of support and understanding. Leigh, please introduce yourself and tell our audience about Teatro Visión and its work. Bienvenida.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. As you said, my name's Leigh Henderson. I'm the Managing Director of Teatro Visión. And Teatro Visión is a Latinx, Chicanx theater company. We're based in San Jose, and we have been here since 1984. And our mission is to create theater that's rooted in Chicanx and Latinx experiences to inspire the people of Santa Clara Valley and beyond to feel, think, and act to create a better world. And the way we do that is we produce theater that speaks to, a lot of different diverse experiences and points of view in the Latinx communities. We also create new work, and when we do that, we try to make it through the participation of and sharing the stories and experiences of the people here in our Bay Area community. So we do that through community workshops or story gathering circles. We've done songwriting workshops. We've done social media posts. And so we bring communities together with artists in those ways to collaboratively create works of theater that are authentically sharing experiences that are relevant to the community here. And then we also have an educational aspect of our mission as well. We teach teatro classes. And when we teach those, they focus not only on the skills of producing theater and creating theater, but also on the ways that theater can be a tool for community building, a tool for social change and social justice.
Thank you, Leigh. I think everybody can see why we were so eager to share Teatro Visión with the public. Thank you so much. And now, Cristal, your play Luz, a shadow play inspired by senior stories, which Leigh led projections and puppet design for, was featured at Teatro Visión. Please tell us about yourself and about the play.
Yes. Hola a todos. Hello, my name is Cristal González Avila, a teatrista. I've been performing. I started as a performer first and foremost. So I've been in this profession, so to speak, for about 20 years now. And I tapped into Teatro Visión when I was a San Jose State student. So we come full circle as a stage manager, assistant stage manager with Diane, to most recently being commissioned to write the play Luz. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Watsonville, so I'm also a local to the area. I serve right now currently the Quad County as a writer, as a performer, as a teaching artist, and lo que venga as a director as well. So I'm currently in that place, and that's how I was able to work with Teatro Visión. In my time, and I still perform, but early on when I started performing more as a young adult, I recognized that we were lacking stories that represent our cultura, my cultura specifically, Mexicana. And that's when I knew I also had to dip my toes into writing. So I started writing plays that spoke about the stories of my family and my communities around me. So when this opportunity came to work with Teatro Visión. Same as you mentioned, it wasn't a question of maybe I'll do it. It was like, yes, I'll do it, because Teatro Visión continues to inspire and highlight those stories that need that platform. So the collaboration with Teatro Visión came about as a form of monologues, and those monologues became a full production. So I was very humbled to be able to be the writer of the full production, but Teatro Visión did commission the work. So just to give it some, contextualize it.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And Cristal, you were talking about the opportunity to share about your Mexican culture, which mine as well. And I know it's all very multi-gen, and which I appreciate in your play. But tell us about Luz, which means light in Spanish. How did it come to be? What drove its creation?
Again, when speaking with Rodrigo and Leigh, I think we all three of us recognize that there's missing narratives, and we typically dismiss the elderly community, not because we don't appreciate their knowledge, but it becomes an afterthought. And these generations continue to leave us; they cycle out, but their stories continue to live. When we were thinking of Luz, we thought about inserting into La de Partera, the first version of it, I believe, and it was in form of a monologue. So when we decided to go that route, I was asked to hold community space, community circles with elders, listen to their story, and write a handful of monologues from those stories. And that's how it began. The title Luz, we kind of went back and forth of why Luz, why not? But the more I think about it, and even in retrospect, as I was thinking about this interview, Luz becomes the main character in our play, because it's through the light that we could see these shadows. It's through the light that we could see these puppets. We could see the actors behind it. So it really becomes the protagonist, so to speak, in a way. I also thought about light or luz as our ancestors. We usually connect them to them. They enlighten us. And it's knowledge that is passed down and not usually recorded for X amount of reasons. So it was a beautiful opportunity to be able to talk to our elderly community, to record their stories audioly, and then to break them down and make them into this structure, play, monologue form. And it was a beautiful process. So it went from 1 minute monologues to an extension of 50-minute play.
And let me tell you, I've seen some of these stories, and they are powerful. They're just amazing. Please share a couple of the stories of these older adults. Anything you want to share?
Oy.
Which one?
I was so moved because sitting with our elders in our community is always a reminder to slow down. And typically the world, society tells us like fast, 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 fast. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to una abuelita or an elder in our community, suddenly you sit down and you're like breathing and you're in a journey. When you ask someone to talk about their life, don't expect that to happen in 5 minutes. You gotta be ready to just listen, right? So it was beautiful. I never knew what I was walking into. There was some stories that focused on the generalization of life, and some of the questions or the prompts that were asked to those that were being interviewed is, ¿Qué regalos te ha dado la vida? What gifts has life given you? What have you learned from life? Very big questions that could go in many directions. And some of the interviews went straight to the core of their own personal life, and then others amplified that and kind of made it a macro response, so a little wider. But one of them that stood out the most, and maybe it's because it reminded me of my mother, was when she was talking about her dreams of, about wanting to be a singer. And that was a dream that she had. And that was taken away from her at an earlier age, at a young age. And it took her entire adulthood to make peace with it, and then to find that that dream come alive in a different form. Not that my mother wanted to be a singer, but I think of our parents' dreams when they came to los Estados Unidos, when they left Mexico. What were those dreams, and at what point did they die, if they died, and then what was born out of them, right? I know I'm one of them. My mother says that, I'm an extension of what she dreamt would happen in her life. But to hear that from another elder in our community was really touching, and it reminded me that there is no separation generationally, yes, but in terms of the experiences that we face as community, allí estamos, we're right there, we're next to each other. So it even made it even more of a point, like these stories need to be shared, these stories need to be developed beyond the 1-minute monologue, because our community needs to know of these people, these leaders, these fighters, because our elders are here, they're thriving, and the challenges that they faced, and everything that's left behind. Cuando se nos van, then there goes
That's it. Yeah. And seriously, thank you so much, Cristal, for actually listening to people and sharing their stories. And like you were saying, every single person, has dreams and aspirations, and many of us, lose them because of circumstances. But just being able to share them is incredible. I mean, thank you. And now, Leigh and Cristal, this question is for the two of you. I know this is a shadow play. Can you tell us more about shadow theater? I wasn't familiar with it, but for those of us watching, why and how did you choose this medium, and what are the benefits and challenges of shadow theater?
I think Cristal, I think, touched on some of why we felt that shadow theater was a appropriate medium for this show, which is this idea of luz and light, and how that carries these memories. Yeah, thank you. Here's one of the still images from the show. And shadow theater is also, it's a really ancient form of performance with roots all over the world, honestly, right? And so that history and that style felt really appropriate to convey this show. And to be able to bring all these memories that the really generous interview subjects shared with us in a visual way. And the other part of it was, in a practical sense, our goal when we created this show was to make it something that we could perform again in other venues. That we did a world premiere, at our theater at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, and then our plan at that point was to make it something that we could bring to community centers or senior centers or schools, so that we could, as Cristal was saying, what we discovered in this process was just how beautiful and powerful and important these stories are. So how can we bring it to more people in more places? And so with the shadow theater approach, it's something we could put in a car and drive to somewhere else. Unfortunately, that aspect of it didn't happen. The world premiere in January of 2020.
Timing.
And then just as we were about to start, making appointments to tour to other places, of course, we had to put all those plans on hold. And then, Cristal, as the director, I think can also speak really well to some of the challenges and opportunities of doing it in this way. I will say that it certainly was a challenge for us, because it was also a stretch for us. We haven't, Teatro Visión as a company, and me personally as an artist, we haven't done a lot of shadow theater. So it was definitely a learning process, a discovery process. We were really fortunate to work with a colleague from Shadowlight Productions, which is a theater based in San Francisco that focuses on shadow theater. So she was extremely, extremely helpful. But, we as a company also pride ourselves on ambition and innovation and sort of risk taking. So, it felt like a good opportunity for us to stretch ourselves in that way too.
Yeah. And I just wanted to, sorry, Cristal, is that me as an audience member, watching it also gave me a sense almost like a radio where, I know you have all the symbolism and context you wanted to share about, the shadow theater, but my imagination just, goes wild, because you're not given everything, your mind is, your imagination is put to work.
That's what I was going to add, that a beautiful thing about shadow puppet is that you get a silhouette. So it's the audience responsibility, or it becomes their opportunity to imagine that other person on stage. What do they look like? What are the features? We lose those features, but if the actor is doing the work, we hear it in their voice and the way they're walking. We see the shadows behind them also adding to the story. And as Leigh mentioned, I think one of the challenges were that it was new for all of us, and it made it scary at times, to say the least. But it also allowed us to really work collectively as a team to say, okay, how are we going to bring these stories to life in a way that it could travel and it could live in a box, and these 2-3 actors at the end would be able to do pop-ups of this. Obviously, like Leigh mentioned, we weren't able to execute that little tour because of the pandemic, but it's outlived it went through the pandemic. Now people have been picking it up through video. So I'm excited that it continues to live. The shadow puppet also challenges the actor. So it was a great way for the actor to flex that muscle because they needed to rely not on facial gestures, but the way they manipulated their voice and their postures, etc. So it's a little bit of everything of what Leigh said and what I added. Yeah.
And, we actually have a short video that shows highlights from performances from Luz. We'll play that for you now, if that's okay.
I was in San Jose State. I was on my way home from the march to Sacramento. I was determined to be a part of La Lucha. But I couldn't. I got caught up. I should have stayed focused. It was in my blood to do something, to fight. The movement eats its children. The revolution eats them alive. The pressure to create change, the meetings, the deadlines, the constant disappointments, all the politics, the death around you, it doesn't stop. I cracked. I had a nervous breakdown. It broke me. It killed a part of me. But I won't change the way I've lived my life.
You did, you Judy.
I couldn't smile on the first time we met. A smile that drove me crazy. I ran out of gas 3 times in the past 2 months. I didn't know it was going to feel like this emptiness. Now I realize all the little things you used to do for me, like I wasn't feeling good because of my diabetes and I couldn't lift my arms up, you would brush my hair. I realized I don't know how to tie my own shoe because you used to do it for me. And during the week, you would fill up my car with gas. Simple things like that. Little things that would make my life so much easier.
Hi, Lou. So good to meet you. I met him at Sunday Mass. Paola introduced me to him, a slim, athletic man. He occasionally smiled as he ran his fingers through his hair, immediately teasing me. What a gorgeous smile. I thought everything about him was fascinating. Within 5 minutes, we must have been laughing like crazy. We must have looked like 2 teenagers, instantly attracted. I've never seen anyone glow the way he did that day.
Mi padre biológico abandonó a mi madre cuando yo venía en camino. Hasta este día No sé cuáles fueron las razones por qué se fue, pero desapareció como lo hacen las estrellas durante el día. Solo que las noches llegaban y él nunca volvió. En una ocasión escuché a mi hermana preguntar, ¿por qué papá se fue?
Encontró otro cariño lejos de aquí.
Según mi mamá, él encontró cariño en otra mujer, se mudó a los Estados Unidos y la dejó con 5 hijos.
Este amor apasionado anda todo alborotado por volver. Papá sonrió con alegría, le gustaba escucharme cantar. Y luego el consejo que nunca faltaba.
Pero acuerda, cuando cantes, no se te olvide sonreír. Así que la gente sepa que te nace del corazón.
Wow, that was powerful. And I think it's mandatory to drink every time we hear volver. So cheers. But seriously, some of those stories, I think every single Latino can relate to one of those stories. They are just powerful and they just touch your soul. Incredible. Cristal, what's next for Luz? Are you going to plan on additional stories? What's in the future?
I mean, I wish we could have more Luzes because there's definitely more Luz stories in our community. So I'm ready if Teatro Visión is ready. But again, I think the direction for Luz, or when we will have another version of Luz, or another stage or reimagination of Luz, will come down to checking in with Teatro Visión. They have the rights to Luz. But I mean, I really do hope we continue that similar work. And Teatro Visión is so good in including their youth, our current Chicano activists, and of course our elderly throughout most of their programming. And I've been able to jump on all those faces with them. So if Luz has an extension, if we continue to interview more people under this Luz, of course, count me in. As an independent artist, I know that's my job and calling, to continue to tell the stories of our community. And of course, by extension, our elderly community are part of what drives my work. So yes, to that.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for listening. As an older adult, gracias. Leigh, what's next for Teatro? Where can people watch Luz? Please tell us what's next.
Yeah, so if you want to watch the full videos of that production, they're all on our website. As I was saying, we really wanted to bring it on tour and weren't able to do that. So as the next best thing, when the pandemic hit, we uploaded all of the videos and shared them freely because we want people to experience it as much as possible. So you can go to teatrovision.org/Luz. And you'll find there's 8 different video segments of the 8 different stories. And you can watch them all in full there. And we too, would love to continue this project. I don't know yet exactly what that looks like because obviously, COVID has been challenging and we've been dealing with that for quite a while, and are actually tomorrow, our first live performance since Luz is opening tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're very excited about that. That one will also be available on demand too, for those who are not yet ready to come back to the theater, because I know not everybody is. But what we discovered through this whole process, from the monologues to creating Luz as this full story, is that these stories are too powerful not to continue to share and not to find new ways to share. So absolutely, we want to continue this conversation and keep building on this project for sure.
And Leigh, we started by saying that Teatro was a true community jewel. We had a question of how people can support, how can they get involved, and especially if they don't have theater experience.
Yes, 100%. You don't have to have theater experience to be a part of our programs in whatever way you want to. As I was saying, all of our new work development processes that we do are based in the community, and we always want to find ways to have community members come and share their stories, share their thoughts, share their experiences, and everybody can do that, right? You don't have to have training in the theater, training as an artist to be able, everybody has a story to share. Everybody has input. Yeah. So if you go to teatrovision.org, thank you. We have an email newsletter is a great way to stay in touch with us to see when we're having community workshops, when we're inviting people to participate in programs. So if you go there and sign up for our email, that's great. We also are really active on Facebook. So if you find us on Facebook, you'll see all the notifications about that. And if you have other questions, if you want to get involved in other ways, auditioning for shows or working backstage at shows, ushering, any kind of things like that, we're always looking for more people who want to get involved. And you can always email us at teatrovision.org, and we would love to hear from you. Absolutely.
Wonderful. We had a question, and I shared how the stories that I saw are just, I mean, there's some of them just are so personal, and I think that every Latino will relate to them. But I had a question, and has Created Luz changed you as artists, and if so, how? One of you?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I mentioned briefly, it was as an artist, even that right now, there's this demand to keep pushing material out. I don't work well under that type of programming to stay relevant, right? I think I like making sure I take my time and I'm paying attention to the experiences. A lot of my work stems from what I see in my community, what I experience as an individual, and in this case, Luz, these elders. So it reminded me of that. It reminded me to slow down, to take time to process, and to hear the voices that were coming up. And it reminded me of our humanity. We're so interconnected, whether somos Mexicanos, Americanos, Filipinos, whether, the range and how we love and experience love is so big. And it reminded me of that. At the end of the day, we're all walking towards that spirit world, if you believe in that. And that's why it was written, right? To go with the partera, departing, going into this other spirit world. So we're all there. We're all going in that same path. And if we slow down and listen to each other, there's stories left and right. And those stories need to be elevated. So it has taught me that I still got so much work to do and so many more stories to tell.
Good. Leigh?
Yeah, that was beautiful, Cristal. When we did the live performance in January, I was privileged to be able to talk afterwards with one of the elders whose story was part of the show, right? So she had been interviewed, and her story was reflected on stage, and then we invited her to come to the show, and I was talking to her afterward, and her friend, and she was just sharing what a wonderful experience it was for her to see, her own story reflected in that way as being important, as being something that is worthy of sharing and of taking the time to hear and to appreciate. And I think that that's so much at the heart of what we're trying to do as a theater company, as theater artists, is empowering people to do that, to tell their stories, to be able to share what it means to be me, which is part of what it means to be human, as Cristal is saying, right? That we all have we have our individual stories, and we also are interconnected in so many ways, right? So yeah, it was so wonderful for me, to feel that we had made that impact on this one person, right? Yeah, and it just highlights, I think, how important the work that we're all trying to do at Teatro Visión is, and the power that we have to give something beautiful to our community.
And that is beautiful. I mean, the stories that you're sharing with Luz are wonderful. You know, God willing, we're all going to age, right? Con ese primero Dios, we're all going to get there. So it's wonderful to be able to share these experiences and hear these stories and know that people are listening. And also just the incredible work that Teatro does for the community, making available these experiences, you know, in person and online. So thank you so much for that. Let's see, for anyone who joined late, we had the wonderful opportunity of speaking with Leigh Henderson, Managing Director of Teatro Visión, and actor Cristal González Avila, director and writer of Luz, a shadow play inspired by senior stories. We learned about Teatro's work to amplify the voices of the Latino community in San Jose, and about the recently featured play La Luz, which highlights stories from the Silicon Valley's older adults. You can learn more about them at teatrovision.org. But before we leave, any final words, any parting comments? Leigh, Cristal?
I would just say thank you to you for giving us this opportunity to share our work and to share Luz, because as I was saying, it was one of the big disappointments of the pandemic that we weren't able to continue offering the live version of this show. So thank you for this, which hopefully is an opportunity to share at least the videos, with new people.
Cristal?
Yes, gracias. Thank you todos for those watching, and for this beautiful interview, and for Leigh for all the love and support. I do want to reach out to our beautiful audience that is watching to continue to support the arts in our communities, teatro in the schools, music in the plazas or in the parks, painting nights, all that good stuff. These are vital instruments that we need to enhance our soul and those around us. So when you can, support, show up, and create.
Beautiful, beautiful. I truly encourage everybody watching to go to teatrovision.org. Check out these videos. They're amazing. Leigh and Cristal, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Mil gracias to our viewers. We're dropping a link to additional AARP California Latino Heritage Month events, so feel free to join us. We really enjoyed the conversation. So have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining AARP California Webinar Wednesday Conversation.